I think the hardest thing for me about being single in church, in the modern church, is the lack of belonging I feel. This is in the context of being in my 20s and not really ever being in a relationship, and seeing most people I grew up with either married or engaged by this point, which is obviously a comparison, not a good thing. But it's very hard when I feel the church kind of idolises marriage as the pinnacle, which isn't true, and I don't think we do believe that, and I think it's probably subconscious that is happening. But those who are, and I haven't spoken to anyone, so I don't know if they can relate, but at least in my experience, it does feel like that is this pedestal, and you just like, oh, marriage is the thing. Which it's an incredible thing, it's a brilliant celebration, but for those who aren't there, haven't achieved that, or even have had that and it's now not part of their life, it's actually quite a painful thing and very difficult to be happy for those who are in those places. And that's hard because that's the majority of the church, let's be honest. It makes me quite sad because it has prevented me from, like, over the past couple of years, I have struggled to attend church out of a sense of not feeling like I belong and not wanting to be there, because of just the difficulty in communicating my true feelings to people who can't relate, and therefore sometimes it's just too painful to talk about when it's brushed aside. I think another thing that's really hard is to try and fight that bitterness that just naturally occurs when you see people getting married, when you see people getting engaged, and you are like, so you are happy for them, you really are. You're just also it's really painful because you're facing something that isn't a reality for you. You're just reminded constantly of something that is not in your life. And part of that is to do with coming to terms, coming to your own peace, and doing that work on yourself, of being like, okay, why am I craving this so much, etc. But also part of it is a responsibility of the community to welcome you despite that, and to welcome you without any of those expectations of you. I also think it's possibly related to the epidemic of loneliness we've got in our societies at the moment, where I think it's seeped into the church, where we confuse relationships with friendships a lot, and we a lot of the time expect our relationships to fulfill all of our friendship needs, which isn't fair on either party, and therefore neglecting our friends outside of our relationships, our romantic relationships. And so those friends then feel quite isolated. And so you have a pool of people who are single and don't know how to socialise. And that adds to the loneliness of us, because I think the loneliness is a huge part, and it's not to say that relationships cure that, I don't think they do, and I think it would be unwise to say that they do, but they obviously fulfill some sort of need there, understandably, but that's not to say that your friends outside of that are nothing, and unfortunately that's something that I've really experienced. But then there's often two camps as well, of a pool of people who are like happily single, and then those people who are quite unhappily single, and that's really important to be able to be happily single, but that's not encouraged, I think, from the church. So it's very, very easy to just be unhappily single. The heart of the church is to want everyone to be included. That's what Jesus wants. And yet there's still so many people who find church so hard to go to. And I've been a Christian for a long time, and I struggle. And I really believe in church. And I still really struggle. I probably have some unconventional beliefs that probably add to that element of disassociation, but I still believe in the core values of the church, and to not feel like you belong somewhere that you've been pretty much your whole life is really painful. One of the things I noticed as well is with that kind of not feeling like you quite belong in the church is where, you know, married people, you have that incredible marriage, like engagement, everyone celebrates your engagement, you're called up to the front, everyone's clapping, everyone's woohoo, which is totally good, that's amazing, that should be done. And then obviously there's the wedding day, everyone's celebrating, you get called up again, there's like a little notice in the little bulletin, maybe you have a baby, some couples can't, some people choose not to. That's a whole another issue and a whole another really difficult time for people, I'm sure. Related but not relatable. But then, you know, there's the other milestone that people often get to. It's like, yeah, congratulations, get up to the front, woo, 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 woo. Then there's the christening, you know, get up to the front, woo, woo. And then like married, and then single people, just there's not that. And it feels, this might be me just talking right now. This might just be me, like my bitterness like creeping in, wanting a bit of, I'm still here. But there's a lot of milestones that are celebrated with the community, which is so important. Like those milestones should be celebrated. Like that's amazing. That is what community does. But, you know, no one cooks me a meal when I've had a really, really hard day and really lonely day. Like those, some of us get forgotten about because, some of us don't have those milestones and would love to have those milestones, but our other achievements aren't celebrated because they're not, and this isn't true because they are important, but they're not often deemed as important as those things. But to us, it's like, it's all we've got, you know, like, that's just my experience. Like, I don't know what other people feel about it. When it's such a big part of so many people's lives, and it's also not particularly a relatable thing, because those who met at university, those who met beforehand, have never really had a time of being single. And it's actually quite painful when they try to relate to you, because it's like, it will pass, it's a season, enjoy the season. And you're like, I am not enjoying the season of just loneliness, because that's what it feels like. A lot of it is just loneliness when you don't have that significant other, or even the friends. You know, friendships are so hard to make these days, let alone relationships. And we tend to prioritise the latter, I think, which I don't think is healthy either. I think friendships are probably more important than relationships. But that's a session for another time, I think. I really want to be able to feel like I can go to church again and not feel sad all the time. And I feel like ostracized is a bit of a harsh word, but sometimes it feels like that. This is just me being completely honest, and my experience is not one of particularly positive note, but I'm hopeful, because these conversations, seeing these things happen between like single friendly church and all these things happening, it's just really, really encouraging to hear people's experiences, because you don't think you're alone, even though you physically can look around and think, I'm the only one experiencing this right now. It's not true, because we're all dotted in loads of different churches around UK and beyond. I'm positive. We're not there yet, but I'm positive, and hopefully in the next couple of years, people like myself and those other people out there will feel a lot more connected to their community. Yeah. Fingers crossed.